Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of GAPCast, where we're going to be talking today about legacy by design. And today we have we actually have three special guests. I'm Debbie Foreman. I'm the host. And with us today, we have the very, very special Nyla Arslanian from Discover Hollywood. Nyla, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. We have the founding partners of Legacy by Design, Hale Showa and Rita Bakuzi. And we're going to get into this in a minute. But I'm going to start off with the fact that we invited Nyla here because I met her at the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, fell in love with her instantaneously, especially because it was like the day that we were working on getting the information out on Legacy by Design. And all that information was fresh in my mind about creating generational legacy, community legacy, impact legacy, generational wealth legacy. How do you keep memories going? And then Nyla came up, we met, and I was like, whoa, this is the woman that has a story to tell, and we want to hear her story. And we want her to be part of this project that we're working on for women on our side in the sandwich generation, because she's already transited past the sandwich part, and she has a lot of experience that enriches it. So that was the first part. I think we could start. I'll start with myself real quick. My name's Debbie Foreman. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a specialist in gap filling gaps that hinder progress, and I help companies, organizations, people close those gaps, hindering their progress to build impact legacy. And when we talk about impact legacy, we're talking about everything that you've done in a lifetime so it can leave an impact. And before I go on, I'm actually going to read off of this just to make sure that we're clear what legacy means. What is legacy? And so, Nyla, I'm going to, after we go, I'll ask Hale and Rita to introduce themselves real quickly. And then we're going to ask you to come in on this thread about who you are, your journey. We're going to have a bunch of questions for you, but always kind of focusing on that, the world of impact and in the world of legacy. Okay. So briefly, I just want to make sure that everybody gets this clear, because we talk about legacy. What is legacy? How do you define legacy? Legacy is what endures after your actions, the impact you leave, the values you transmit, and the change you set in motion beyond your own time. In clearer terms, legacy is not just what you have or achieve, but what you build that others can use or grow. And that's what really got me with Nyla. What she's built that community, society can use or grow. What you model that others can adopt or repeat. And with so many years of experience, she's got processes in place and frameworks in place that can be modeled and repeated. What continues even when you are no longer present. So when you hand off everything you've built, how does that continue? And a lot of times people get legacy confounded with inheritance. And Hale can talk a lot about that, and Rita can talk a lot about that, because inheritance is what you leave to people. Reputation is what people say about you. And we know Nyla's reputation, I can only imagine only good things are said. And legacy is what lives through others because of you. And legacy is intentional continuity, the bridge between what mattered to you and what becomes possible for others because you mattered. And I'm going to say that one more time. Legacy is intentional continuity. And I thought, Nyla, when I met her, she was talking about continuity. Continuity through community, continuity through communication, intentional continuity, and the bridge between what mattered to you and what becomes possible for others because you mattered. And Nyla matters to Hollywood. She matters to Southern California. She matters to community. And I wanted to bring that in. And so before I continue, I'm going to ask Hale, and first, let's start with Hale up on my left, and then we'll move on to Rita. Just a little bit about who you guys are, what you do.
Hi, ladies. Hi, Naila. It's great to have you. My name is Hale Shoa, and I'm the CEO and founder of Picturely. And my sort of founder story is that my parents found themselves in the middle of the 1979 Iranian Revolution, and they had to make really tough decisions very quickly. And that was to leave the country with their 7 family members. My brother was already here, so that made it slightly easier. And my sister was shipped out shortly after the revolution because she was 15 years old, and teenagers were really targeted. So my mother was left with me and my little sister at the time, who was 3, and I was 9. And, she didn't have much to bring with her, but she did bring all the family memories. And so I found myself in my 20s wondering a lot about my own childhood because I didn't have a lot of memories about it. And I started to go through the family albums. I started to archive them. And so it became something that was a deep seed in me to really want to learn more about myself, where I came from, and the stories of my family, to whom I didn't have that much access anymore because we are still currently in 4 different continents. And it brought a lot of joy to my family. And about 10, 11 years ago, I thought, there has to be other families that want to be able to do this, to have this. And so I founded Picturely, and so here we are. And, Nyla, you are, your history is so exceptional. You work with reporting and storytelling. And I'm wondering, how have you built up your own family and generational legacy story to leave to the next generations?
Well, I don't know that I've done hardly anything in some in in some ways, in having to build for and that could be possibly for one reason, is that I don't have children of my own. My sister did not have children of her own, and we are a small family, and we've lost contact. And though, like what you said, of finding those pictures and going through those albums, um, and looking at the times past. What I look at are pictures of Los Angeles, Southern California, as a child, and as my mother as a child, and my grandparents who came to California in 1917 from the Louisville, New Albany, Indiana area. And just sort of like bringing together people. I mean, that was only one part of the family, and then there was the other part of the family was my father, who my mother met out here in California, and he had a whole other story. And then his parents had another story. His mother was Czech, and they had come in the 1880s, and his father was English, and they are English, and I have been able to make contact with that part of the family. And I've done a little ancestry, which has been a, it's an amusing thing to do, and I've taken part of the family back to like the 16 and 1500s, but that's only one tiny segment, because I'm a I'm a product of all of that. And then with this very exotic name of Nyla Arslanian, suddenly I have a whole different, not only by perception if people don't know me, but also a whole other take on myself and my husband's culture. And I say something, I learned a phrase. It's and I hope I get this right. Serdish Mesh I am, and it means in my heart I am Armenian. And so I'm able to embrace a culture that I never knew anything about. The only thing that I knew about Armenians was that my grandmother would say to us, "Eat your peas. Remember the starving Armenians." Well, the Armenians weren't starving. They were in not good shape, but they weren't as bad a shape as they were when she used to say that to my mother. And so that was the only thing that I ever knew about Armenians was my grandmother saying that to have me eat my vegetables. So I I hope that answers your question about who I am uh, as a heritage. You said it's different, the heritage and legacy. That's who I am as a heritage, and I'm proud of it. I had an uncle that worked in the entertainment industry that I never even knew he did. I never knew that he was in it because he was just my uncle that came to Christmas and Thanksgiving dinner as a kid. But ended up he was a giant in the industry and came with Carl Lemney to and lit the first night. He was the electrician, the head electrician at Universal Studios for 50 years and lit the first night set. So it's something I didn't even know about to maybe 10 years ago. So, it's something that continues to unfold as you find things out or you talk to a long lost relative or someone who knew you, who knew your parents or whatever. And it's something that just builds and grows. So that's my story.
Thank you for that.
Before we move on to Rita, I want to ask you one last, or not one last, because I got a ton of questions, and they keep unfolding here as I'm taking a couple of notes. You were born in 1939, and you're sitting here on this podcast with us as though you were 25 years old, but you're not. Okay, somebody can do the math. I'm not even going to try to do it. But from 1939 until now, you have built a professional legacy. And you did this as a woman in, let's say, the earlier times when it wasn't as common. And that journey as a woman, building a legacy, just run us through that timeline. How did you get to where you are now? To be the Nyla that you are now, running Discover Hollywood, being the community leader, community involvement, engaging community, building a business, sustaining a family. How did that happen?
Oh my God. That's like an impossible question to answer in a short time. I am a child of the 50s. And just say who am I then? Yeah, I'm a child of the 50s. You mentioned Hollywood. I grew up in my family was in the Silver Lake area, which is the central part of Los Angeles, and that has a really big because things that happen to you as a child have a lot more impact on you than things that happened to you as you were an adult. So some of my memories and some of the things that happened to me as a child are they really had more of an impact and really shaped who and what I am later on in life that I didn't even know. But one of the things, my joys, is that I live very, very close to that area now. And I drive through it and it's like really being home is like it was when I was, a kid coming in from the San Fernando Valley, which we eventually did move to. And then one thing led to another. We were a generation. We didn't want to stay at home. We wanted to get out of home. That was our whole thing: is get out and get on your own. And I was out and on my own. I was going to go on to college, and I chose to go to business college because then I could be on my own. I could get a job, and you could get a job coming right out of high school, and a decent job. And that's what I did. I went to business college. I got a job. And at that time, what did women do? Well, they went to college and they either went some kind of professional life, maybe not necessarily, but they found a husband there a lot of times. Maybe they went into the service, or maybe they became a nurse, or they went into like secretarial work, administrative work. And that's what I did. And that took me a very, very long way. You should always have something to fall back on. And I can type really, really good. And I can even still take a little bit of shorthand. And it still serves me very well to this day. But it also set me on my life's path. And I ended up, with an extraordinary 2 years at the Strategic Air Command in Omaha, Nebraska, in the underground, as part of a team that documented the operations of the Strategic Air Command prior to the programmers coming in. Now, I didn't even know that. I didn't know what I heard programmers. I didn't even know what that was. I only knew that I spent my days typing operations, doing flow charts, doing copying, the stuff that we did, and, on this Air Force base, which was really a lot of fun for a, young woman. And me and my best friend were the two people on the team. And so that started me, and it served me very, very well. You go through life changes, you have love affairs, then you have marriages, then that marriage may not work out, and you find yourself across the country living in New England, which was a place that I could have still been in New England. I discovered community in New England. I didn't know. Growing up in Southern California, everybody came from someplace else. I was unusual because I had grandparents that lived nearby. Most of my friends, their grandparents were still what people would say back east. Their grandparents were someplace else. I had grandparents. So the idea of going someplace and someone saying, "Oh, this is Debbie Foreman. You know Debbie. Her folks live down on High Street. Her mother is so and so. Her aunt is such and such. And oh, her grandfather built it at the general store down the street. Blah blah blah." Well, I just found that so fascinating that so it somehow that reached into me, and one thing led to another, a new marriage, one thing, back and forth the country. I called that the corporate migrant worker phase that I was in, where you're hired, you're moved, you get another job and you move back, or you go someplace else. So been there, done that. But coming back home, coming back to California the second time, coming into the area very close to where my grandparents settled. Um, Old Hollywood, the Los Feliz area, Old Hollywood. One thing led to another. I saw something. I became involved with the Hollywood Arts Council. Next thing I knew, I was president of the Hollywood Arts Council. I ran that organization for 30 years, and we did incredible things. And out of the Hollywood Arts Council, Discover Hollywood was born. And one thing led to another. There's not time to tell all of the stories and all of the impact of what that organization did in doing an annual Children's Festival of the Arts where 3,000 people would come. We did it at Paramount Pictures. We did it for 30 years. Other projects where, there was one project after another with that organization, and gradually I became and we took on Discover Hollywood as an enterprise, and I have been its editor ever since. So I put 7 million copies of a magazine that we produced over almost 40 years into the world, and other things being involved and being a strong and committed person for my community of Hollywood, not Hollywood from sea to shining sea, but Hollywood, the real place that has real deep challenges that are unfathomable, that this city has not recognized the importance of this place, its history, its buildings that are still there, its beauty that it's right behind, at the foot of these beautiful Santa Monica Mountains that has a very famous sign on it. But there are real people here, and it's a real community, a people of people. When I say a real community, people that are, oh, my father used to have that store down on such and such, or we used to go down on so-and-so street. That community does live here, and that's what I found, and that's what I'm committed to. Because my operating principle is that communities contribute to the quality of life for everyone, and everyone knows who they are and celebrates each other. And I wake up into that every day, and it inspires me, and it carries me through, because let me tell you, it doesn't look like that every day. But when you hold that in your heart, you find it wherever you look.
That's amazing. Rita.
Oh, Debbie, thank you so much for having me with these amazing women. I truly feel honored. As a woman who is a mom, now grandma, wife of many years, and the daughter of immigrants, one of the things that I lived through that challenged me was the experiences of both big market losses between the ages of 30 to now. And I know a lot of people can resonate with that. And on top of it, at one point, one of the market losses within a couple of years having a major life health event. So I'm also a survivor of cancer for 15 years now. What those lessons taught me and where it hit me in my heart is no matter what planning you do, sometimes life will have other ideas, because I was a big planner. I started my retirement planning thinking I was creating my legacy, which I was, at 18 years old. I just didn't know that connecting the dots, it's connecting the dots looking backwards. We had a major family tragedy when I was in my 20s, and the loss of my older brother. And I think I came at a view of the world in a different perspective because he was a shining light that always paved paths. And I'm going to say his leaving this earth opened doorways for me to now kind of take the reins for what was going to be next in the world. And I worked in the industry of wellness. I was always a service person. I had wanted to be a teacher and I had to drop out of college at that time. And when people were getting sick, one of the biggest things that was happening is they were worrying about finances. And they got what I call financial cancer. And so the reality of it today is that, people get into disparity and duress. They feel a loss of dignity around their financial situation because they lacked knowledge. So what I did with all of that is, I thought if my parents could pave the way coming to this country, actually, they were on a ship called the Andrea Doria, which sank just off of Ellis Island a year after they were on it. So I look at every one of us as a blessing, and we're all here for a divine purpose. Even with the loss of my brother, I knew there was a divine purpose for me to be able to kind of step up into my life, and I call it stepping up into our greatness. And so with that, and seeing the health events, I made it my life's mission so that no one else would have to suffer those kind of losses again if they wanted to make a change in their life. And so I ended it up in the industry of financial services. I became a wealth strategist because it wasn't about a lack of money. It was about the lack of education, the lack of preservation. And so now to today, I'm piloting programs called Money Education Mentorship Workshops, which is a community of like-minded, high-achieving women, mothers, business owners and professionals that are wanting to create that change for themselves by gaining that knowledge and confidence, and then passing it on in legacy to the next generation. And I say, answering the call that this is the year that we never say that there's not a money education out there, because it is. And so we don't have that to fall back on, well, it's not there. There is a way to, there's possibility. Nyla, the question I have for you that I would like to ask you, because you mentioned, your story is so powerful and it touches me because it helps me to share even better. Because before, I wasn't really sharing the history of my family as much as I'm doing with this beautiful group of ladies, Debbie and Halle. I just feel like they're opening me up in such a new way. And this is what the beauty of community is. So as you were growing up, that financial legacy building for women definitely, I know, was a challenge, because it's a challenge today. The taboos, you could talk about today, we could talk about sex, politics, and religion almost, but not necessarily discussions around money, especially for women, maybe men sometimes. And so we're not given or passed on that information on how to build our wealth. So I would love for you to touch upon that journey of how you started learning and understanding about building that future for yourself so that it could be a sustainable, secure, or stable future, or that part or aspect of your life. And so I was wondering, what was that like for you? And what were maybe the key components that made it so that you could connect with that legacy building?
Wow, you guys have such amazing questions. That's, it's really, really great. And I just really want to just acknowledge you and what you've been through. Where I am in my life right now is that I'm so grateful that I have the luxury. I call it the luxury of the long view, because the long view is that you know that there's ups and then there's downs, and then you're going to go up again, and then oh my God, we went down on that one, and then you're going to go up again, and then oh my goodness, here we go again on another one. And the luxury of the long view is knowing that you can and you will survive. And that's such a, I don't know that that's anything that can be given. That's something that's got to be lived. But it's just brought to mind your question. The thing, I came from I guess you'd call it a very middle class family. My stepfather was a firefighter for LA County. My mother, who had gone to school and had a business as a hairdresser during the war until my father came back from the war, and one thing led to another. One thing that led to another was that he was lost. He had a tragic accident and was killed when he was 6 months out of the service. And but as a result of that, and I think when you said about money, my sister and I got a Social Security check that we were aware that we did. And so if there was something that was, that you wanted a new dress for the prom, or you needed something for school supplies, or my mother sent me for a time during, she didn't want us to go to junior high school. She wanted us to go to private junior. So she sent us to Catholic schools, but it was always wait till the check comes. Wait till the check comes. And so there was an awareness there of money, or of waiting for things. And I never had a job during high school or anything, but I did have an awareness of money, and I left home, went to business school, lived with my girlfriend's mother until we got an apartment in Santa Monica, California, in a very high rent area today. And I remember how much we spent. She and I, the rent was $135. Her part was $67.50, and my part was $67.50 that we split. And I think that I was making like $275 a month. I mean, I can remember that. And it's like, and we were in great shape. And I think it took a while. She got a car. I didn't get a car. One thing led to another. Then that's when we went to Nebraska, and we're living on our own, living on our salary, pre-credit card. Everything was check or cash, pre-credit card. And it was a very, very long time in my life that credit cards came. So that's how you lived. And I think that's a great challenge for today. I mean, I'm challenged by it. You get your bill. How did that happen? How did that happen? How did I get that balance? Oh my goodness, what did I do? You look at, oh, well, I did that, and then I did that. Oh dear, yes, I did. I did it. Okay, now how are we going to pay for it? Well, okay, we got to figure it out. So I think that that's a big challenge for today. I don't know how I can't imagine. I really can't imagine what that's like. But the thing that was so great for me in high school, and I know that this helped, was we had a class called Senior Problems. And in that class, they talked money. I learned how to do a tax return in that class. And for years after, until Oscar and I, my husband, we came to a point where we needed to have some assistance with our taxes. Did we even go to it? I did the taxes. I knew how to do taxes because I took a class in, a half a semester class in high school. So I'm so grateful for that. It's all of another time. I don't know what people do these days. I find it mystifying of how do you do it? I still write checks. Some things I do automatic payment, but I like the feeling of it. It's a little more tactile, and I have a lot more awareness of what's going in and what's going out. So I hope that answers your question, because
It does.
it takes you into other places that my mind is still going into.
I want to try to, that was a great, Rita, great question. and great presentation, family history, and Nyla, fascinating because like I'm 57 and all my memories go back to credit cards. You know, as Nyla was talking about this, I remember my brother, I was 17, my brother was 15, and we took a 3-month trip to Europe, okay? We were minors. And we had flown on Pan Am, and we get there, and we had like, it was like all planned out, the Euro Pass, and we were going to be staying at hostels, and we had traveler's checks, and like 3 things happened simultaneously in a 48-hour period. We're in the middle of the trip, Pan Am closed down. Remember when Pan Am shut down? So we didn't have a return ticket. And we were minors, and we weren't allowed to be able to buy them, number 1. Number 2, we had 1 credit card, which was a MasterCard, okay? But remember those old books? They were like telephone books that would have the numbers of the credit cards in them. Well, somehow our credit card had our number showed up in that book. So my brother took a lighter underneath the credit card and melted down a number 8, and we turned it into a 0. Okay, so we could use the credit card, and then we go to cash. Like we were on a train. We go into a train station in Denmark, go to cash a cashier's check to be able to go. And while we're there, somebody snagged my passport off the desk. And so the next thing, we go to the US consulate in Denmark, and they're like, you guys are minors. You can't be traveling. So we got shipped over to the military base in Frankfurt, the US military base, while they were trying to reach our parents, but we couldn't get a flight home. So we ran out of money, literally ran out of money. So we ended up 2 weeks on this base. And I remember this whole thing. We're like, the credit cards are our salvation. We got to find a way. And then we had to be able to get over to England to be able to get a flight out that our parents were working on. But we had like 3-4 days in England with no money, none. Okay. And we're like, now what? My brother's sleeping in a little park with the bunny rabbits. I got a space in a hostel because they understood the situation that the military base had come from. And so there was no electronic, there was no digital, there was no whatever, and that we couldn't get it. And we were sitting there and we were stranded. So like, I'm taking that back from my time. So I'm going back to Nyla's. I was just going on the journey. And I want to try to tie 2 things together, because the financial planning today, and Nyla's talking about it, you said you can't even fathom, it's mystifying to you that how people handle this today. All right. So I'm going to go back to 2 comments. I want to go first back to what Nyla had said, because I think, Nyla, you underplay or underestimate the power of your journey and the legacy and the impact that you're leaving. Okay. Underscored. All right. And I want to try to bring that up, because you literally said, I began at the Hollywood Arts Council, and then all of a sudden I became the president for 30 years. No, I began and all of a sudden. So what was that space in time between began and all of a sudden, just out of curiosity?
Well, it was like my first journey into like community life. Other community was in my community, if you call it work. I did community theater. I did it in New England, and I did it a little bit of it here. Not having any aspirations for anything other than the love of live theater, love of doing it. All aspects of it, directing and being stage manager and doing everything and acting, doing the whole part of it. It's fabulous. That's another whole story. Anyway, I saw a thing in a newspaper. That's another very old thing, old-fashioned. In the newspaper that said that this new organization, the Hollywood Arts Council, was forming, and if you were interested to go to a meeting. So I went to a meeting, and I was very inspired by what they were doing, because they were talking about how they're going to, the work's so funny, because this is a conversation that hasn't ended yet. How they were going to work with, revitalize Hollywood. It was about revitalizing Hollywood. We've been revitalizing Hollywood for a long time, up and down. Anyway, I was very inspired by the people and what they were saying, and they would sign up things as we left, and I think I signed up for every committee. And I got a call from the president practically the next day saying, "I see you're interested in the arts," and one thing led to another, and I became very, very involved with the organization. Went on the board, took an officer's position, and then, like I said, one thing led to another, and a couple of years later, I was asked to be president, of which I did, and we didn't have, and we, and I remained president, and this is another thing that, because I've consulted with the nonprofits, and I just was on the LA County Arts Commission grant review panel, reviewing applications for funding. I'm a student of nonprofit, which I always find interesting, Rita, because I always counsel people that you need to look at a nonprofit, not like, oh, well, we can get donations that can help us. You got to look at yourself as a business, and then go from there. So
guys, bless. Wait a second, time out. Yes, I've done a lot of nonprofit fundraising work around the world. And every single time I get to a nonprofit, they're like, oh, we're going to do a donation campaign. I'm like, this is a business. It just, the profits go back in. It's a business. And I hear this all the time. People before profit. No. Profit to be able to serve the people.
Exactly. I say to people, oh, did you get a call this week from AT&T saying, oh, you're doing such great, wonderful work? We're not going to charge you your bill this month. No, it doesn't happen that way. Oh, your landlord says, oh, you're nice people. Forget about the rent. No, they don't.
Thank you.
And oh, if you form a nonprofit, that's the best one, because then you can get grants, and all people do is want to give you money. That's the other one I love. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
That's another whole subject.
Yeah. So I want to tie back to something that Rita said, and then Nyla kind of tapped into this. Okay. Rita was talking about connecting the dots, looking backwards. Okay. And when a lot of the times in the frameworks that we use for impact building, especially, and this is where I'm going to try to walk us through real quick, and then I want Nyla to kind of like tune into this, all right? So when I use frameworks for creating impact legacy, all right, for middle-aged, seasoned women in the sandwich generation, because there's no middle age, all right? There's the age that we're at now where we're dribbling elderly parents and so on and so forth on one side, and children growing on the other, and our businesses and changing bodies, and everything that this generation, that Legacy by Design is designed for, because this series of workshops is designed to help women in our generation have the tools and the frameworks to stop running on autopilot and to be able to create a lasting legacy and to put all this effort that we've done for 30, 35 years into something that's going to last and that's going to outlive us, and to bring that pressure off. Okay. But when Rita said connecting the dots, looking backwards, I always say it's like this. We're driving our little car down the road, and right now, a lot of us are, let's say, on that autopilot, or what do you call it, cruise control, or whatever you want to call it. And we're on that desert road from LA to Vegas, and you're just going, you're kind of nodding off, and you're kind of there, and you're at this thing, and everything's passing you, and you keep seeing it. But at our age, when we look in the rearview mirror, we see everything that we've already done. We're able to see everything that we've passed. But we're so tired and worn out, it's hard to see in front of us to the final destination. And we know that there's more time behind us than there is in front of us. We're getting closer, and we're getting closer. But why are things so much clearer when we look behind? And why is it so much fuzzier and like foggier when we're looking ahead, even if it's a sunny day on that desert road? It's because we're on autopilot, and we don't see how we can appreciate each one of those steps, getting close to that so we can celebrate that impact. And then what I wanted to try to tie into that was, you said that there's an ongoing conversation that has never ended, which is the revitalization of Hollywood. It's a conversation that starts and it never ends. It starts and it never ends. It starts and never ends. Reminds me of the same thing. I lived in Brazil for 36 years. And it's like the Brazilian flag. It says order and progress on it. And it's like the intangible asset, what Brazil's always trying to accomplish and never gets to. But when you look at that, we as women, when we reach this season moment, when we reach this bridging moment, we have that ongoing conversation that never ends. I'm going to do, I'm going to be, I'm going to do, I'm going to be, I will, I can, I must, I will, I can, I must. But we somehow don't get to that moment where we can take our hands off the wheel because we haven't designed it out. Does that ring? Look where you're at now. You haven't stopped because because you've made this impact and because you keep making this impact. So give us a lesson on what we need to do to be there that we can incorporate into Legacy by Design. What keeps you going with so much clarity when you have that rearview mirror behind you? How are you connecting those dots to keep going and to make this impact? Because you're underscoring, you're underplaying. Oh, I don't know if I made an impact 30 years here. Community there. Discover Hollywood this long. You've made an impact, a big impact, and you continue making an impact. So help us out.
Well, you talk about being able to see the past clearly, but not the future clearly. And it's like you can create your future for yourself, or you can create what you see. Like you mentioned about Hollywood. I see it so clearly how it could be. And I'm willing to commit to that. And do I win? Is it happening? That's not even that. Now, if you're talking about this as like an occupation and that's something that you've got to do because you've got to make money to feed your family, that's a whole different conversation. This is about commitment. This is about something that I see in the future and that I'm willing to put my time and effort into in whatever way it is. And I see it very clearly. I see preservation. I see the arts. I see a vital, vibrant community, and I'm willing to give part of my life to help make that happen. Will it happen? I don't know. Can it happen? Yes, it's possible. Absolutely possible. I was at a meeting yesterday, and people were more or less saying the same thing in a different kind of with different words, because everybody is committed and wanting something to happen. They don't know. So I set up a meeting. I'm going to talk to a few people. Is it going to happen? I don't know. But am I committed to it? Yes, I am. And a lot of this has to do with really practically a lifetime of continuing growth and development education and growth and development that I've been on in myself. I'm not, I cannot not say that some of my ideas and some of what inspires me isn't because of the processes that I've been through in my lifetime, over a very long time, over like 50 years, that I've been almost in continually, looking at it, and things that I've learned and things that were maybe, and that is something that I continue to this day, that it's just about possibility. And that's something that I've learned from landmark education over these years. And it's only about the future, and you don't know. The past is in your past. And if you live your life, you're in the past, you're living your life backwards. We've got to live our life forward and see what's there and what turns you on. Like with Rita, she saw something for herself. I mean, she had to go through some really incredible things to get there, but she saw her future in finance and really helping women. In Halle, the same thing. She saw, oh my gosh, this is so great. Other families would probably really love this. I got so turned on by it. I'm going to create a business. And out she goes. So she's seen the future and is committed to it, and you and what you do. So that's where it lives. It lives in creating your future, because we do live in a world of our own design. It's only when we turn around and look back. Oh, did I get far enough? Have I done enough? Have I done judging and evaluating who you are and what you've done. And did I do it right? And that person is a jerk, and all that other stuff that comes up in your life. But you got to keep committed to what you're doing and who you are. and where you want to go. And will you get there? You might, if you keep committed to it, and a good likelihood you will. Other things can happen. Look at what Rita shared. I mean, stuff does happen. That's part of the whole game. It's just the game of life, and
You said,
that's what we're left with.
before I pass this on to Hale, you said we live in a world of our own design. That's one. Okay, we live in and you touched on personal and professional development as a continuum. Okay. We live in a democracy, a free democracy. We're free to be able to make choices. We're free to learn. But a lot of women in our generation that we're surrounded by feel prisoners of their own mind in the imposter syndrome. They're prisoners to, I can't, I've tried, I don't know how, I don't know if it's worth it, I don't know where it's going to take me. And that being, the four of us have a different outlook, probably because each one of us has created our own frameworks that you help other people and empower other people. Nyla, you said you've been dedicated to personal empowerment and growth. And through that, you've learned the frameworks. Rita, same thing through financial legacy. Hale, same thing through generational legacy. Me, same thing through impact legacy. That's what we do. But what we see and hear around us, especially in this bridging sandwich generation, is, oh, I don't know how, I don't know why. Is it worth it? I can't know. I don't know how. It doesn't know. And yeah, just like you said, we live in a world of our own design. But what happens to all these women that don't know how to design it? When they're just prisoners to a mindset? What do you have to say to them?
The main thing that I always say about that is don't listen to your mind. Your mind is not your friend. Your mind only tells you how inadequate you are. Your mind only makes you wrong. Your mind always say, well, you could have done it better. Or why didn't you do it this other way? Or what are those people thinking? Or maybe you shouldn't say that. Oh, what did I do wrong? Your mind is just chattering. And that's where really being and finding something for yourself and what you want. And I don't know, there's no how to, there's no manual. If there was a manual, boy, oh boy, we'd all, and there is a manual. I mean, there's a billion self-help books out there, and, just be on the path of discovery. And again, try not to listen to those stories, and find a place for yourself that you know, and I'm not somebody that I have, like I said, I have no how to. I don't know. I ended up being where I am, and I can't believe it. And it's quite a journey, and I so appreciate the opportunity, because this has been an amazing session to answering these incredible questions that I never would have thought of, and never probably would have even I thought of them, I probably wouldn't have answered them. My mind would have told me that it wasn't worth anything, or that nobody was interested or something. My mind would tell me the same thing that everyone else's minds are telling them. You could have done it better, or don't do it at all. Don't even give it a chance, because you'll probably fail. Just go out and make it happen. And because if you live in a world of your own design, it means that there really isn't any design there, except the one that you make for yourself.
Hale, where are you going on that one?
I completely agree with Nyla. Your growth, your truth is in your heart. It's not in your head, is what I gather from what she just said. And I completely agree with her.
Nyla. Rita, do you have a ending, something you'd like to end with?
The only thing that I wanted to share, I think what Nyla's talking about is really what we're going to be doing as far as the hands-on framework in our upcoming workshop, that's going to be structured. And what we're talking about is connecting these things of life experience lived, connected to education, connected to community, because what she said is that course has resonated with her all these years from high school to today. And what impact that has had on her legacy building, that maybe she wasn't even quite aware if she was doing as she was going along. And so moving beyond that autopilot with that structuring. And so I would just say, more of this is what's needed in the world, because I'm going to say Nyla is that living example of what exactly is what we're doing to showing up for each other as women, to support one another and help each other elevate and help us be able to be in community, keep connected, have the consistency, because doing it alone, it's challenging. And so why not have more fun and do it together in our community? And Nyla, thank you so much for your wisdom, because that's literally the wrap up. I wrote actually so many notes, and I agree with Hale and that mind chatter, and then making things go from the mind chatter to connecting it to your heart and then sharing it with the world so we can make a difference.
Amen.
So thank you, Nyla, for making a difference and being here.
Yes,
And
thank you
Nyla,
so much, Nyla.
sorry. Nyla, we would like to have you with us, if you can make it. We'd like you to be able to participate in bringing us your empowerment of community building. We're each a community builder, but you've got a lot more experience than we do. We are going to be creating a safe place for these 40, 45 women that'll be coming in, where they're in a safe place to be able to talk about, get that chatter out of their minds, have the framework for the financial legacy, for the impact legacy, for the generational legacy, for getting off the autopilot, for being able to leave for themselves a landmark for all the effort that they've put in. And I believe that with you with us, if you'd be able or willing to, it would be an honor to have you and chime in as we move along throughout the day. I don't know if you can or can't, but if you can, we'd love to have you with us and share this with the women that you know in this generation that have that chatter, that are fighting that freedom, know that they want to and don't know how they can.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I will look at my calendar and see if I can make that work. It's
Wonderful.
I'm honored to be invited, truly.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I think we're going to sign out. Nyla, it's been a pleasure. For everybody, one more from Legacy by Design with our special guest, Nyla. Like, subscribe, comment, and we will see you at the event.
Great.
Thank you, ladies.